Almost everyone's health would improve from consuming more fiber. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, be greatly appreciated. If you're not subscribed or following, I would appreciate it if you do so, and let me know below how much fiber you actually consume. If you know, I'd love to hear it in the comments. All right, let's get over to the point. Again, there's this strange anti-fiber thing happening in certain circles online, but we need to be clear. A lot of that comes from profound ignorance. It comes from people who've damaged their guts with really horrifically bad diets and lifestyles who can't handle fiber at the moment, but they could actually improve that over time. So we do need to be clear. This is not based on reality. It's not based on science, medical stuff. This is really quackery that people are promoting. Because usually what we find, even if people want to appeal to nature, and people love to use the appeal to nature fallacy. They love to use the appeal to nature in fitness and nutrition for some reason. But I mean, if you're going to be technical Paleolithic humans, who are obviously considerably lighter than we are because of access to less food, still consumed 100 or more grams of fiber a day. So if we're going to talk about, well, what's natural and what your ancestors ate, we're talking Homo sapien, our species, all through the Paleolithic times before even agriculture, they consumed upward of 100 grams of fiber a day. It was considered normal and average for most of humanity. So again, we need to be clear. If that is what your ancestors were consuming, that means that you have the GI tract to handle it. So there's kind of your take home with that of you're the same species, you have the same genes and things that they had, they handled it just fine. That was normal for most of humanity based on what we can tell. So that being said, when we start looking at a lot of data, we find that the higher fiber intake is in a culture or society, the longer lived they are, the lower all-cause mortality is, the less health issues we have. And it's what I try to tell the people. Even a lot of the effects, negative effects of various junk food you eat are offset by fiber intake. And now people are going to say, I can't handle much fiber. I'm going to talk about that as we get further into it. That's actually kind of the interesting thing, is that you can build your capacity to handle and break down fiber over time. So again, you can't handle it right now. You would just scale it back to a comfortable level and then slowly bring it up over time. Okay, and your gut flora will usually eventually adapt, right? Just like your ancestors did. Okay, just like your ancestors did. So when we start looking at that, what you have to understand is that when we think of things like lowering lipids, we think of saturated fat in your diet, or refined sugars. I've done a lot of breakdowns of fructose intake, right? And so usually even refined sugars, it's the lack of fiber being consumed with them that is the biggest problem. And I'm not telling people to consume refined sugars, because even if you wanted to add those, something like honey that has antioxidants and stuff would be better if you're going to add it to a bunch of fibrous foods, because you're going to get more benefit, not just empty calories. There's also no upper threshold to antioxidant intake in health from foods. So just an FYI, that would be the better choice. But even then, that fructose, even binding it to more and more fiber, it becomes less of a problem in terms of free fructose reaching your bloodstream. It ends up reaching your lower intestine where fructose is fermented into glucose and is actually prebiotic, right? Fructose is actually prebiotic, which is why fruit's great for your GI tract. Right? It's great for your gut because that fructose is bound and it reaches your lower intestine where your gut can ferment it and it feeds it. We get more healthy gut biome. All right, so the same thing as far as lowering lipids. We get less increase in LDL cholesterol even from saturated fat as fiber goes up. So again, I tell people, they're like, well, Jason, you talk about saturated fat and too high being a problem, particularly separated out and butter and bacon and processed red meats, but you're not anti-steak in moderation. And it's like, yeah, because you can handle a certain amount of saturated fat from red meat, but the amount varies, and things like your fiber intake mitigates that. So even then, it's like the higher your fiber is in your diet, the less problematic saturated fat becomes. Your intake limit of saturated fat from say steak or lamb or something like that, the safe limit to where it's relatively benign, goes up as fiber intake goes up. Okay, so that's why it's not like, hey, what is your, what's the limits there? Why are you not anti-red meat? It's like, well, as long as it's relatively lean, your diet is balanced, and you're consuming plenty of fiber, it may not have any negatives. Again, that fiber intake is context dependent. So the same thing we start talking about, even dietary fructose. That fiber intake affects all of it. So even a lot of the things we think of as bad foods, more and more fiber, and I don't mean you'll take a fiber supplement, guys. I'm talking eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains. Eat real fiber. That is really your winner here. That is the take-home message. And especially because then we have a diversity of fiber in your diet. So let's get over and let's talk about the other stuff. So that's just dealing with things like blood sugar control, fructose absorption, lipid profile. But let's get into all the other stuff, the gut health in. All right, fiber is really what is the most probiotic and prebiotic thing you can consume. We talk about gut health, and it's the thing that everyone's realizing is linked to more and more stuff. But what's the best thing we can do for gut health? To eat more higher diversity fiber. I've even had people say, well, what's better, soluble or insoluble? You need both. You need lots and lots of both. And in fact, let's not just think soluble and insoluble. You need to be saying, hey, can I have 3, 4, 5 sources of fiber in my diet every single day? That diversity of fiber type and fibrous foods is what fuels your gut flora diversity. It gives you a larger number of different types of healthy bacteria, and it increases the count. So the more fiber you're eating in general, the more healthy bacteria you have in your gut. Well, this matters for everything. It matters for your immune system. It matters for your body's ability to fight off cancers. It matters for your body's ability to absorb even things that you want to slow absorption down. Okay? The more fiber you consume, the better your insulin sensitivity. I mean, this matters for diabetes, cancer, muscle growth. Higher insulin sensitivity improves muscle growth. It makes it easier to lose body fat. Okay, better body composition, better immune system. All these things, all these diseases we're concerned with, fiber reduces the rates of them and reduces the severity of them. And then we get into not just the immune health also, but how about mental health? How you feel, your mood. We know that your gut flora, there's a mind-gut connection there that happens at a neurotransmitter level. All right, a lot of your certain neurotransmitters that we need are produced in the gut. All right, they're produced by all that healthy bacteria. So it literally affects your brain function and your mental health issues, your depression, your anxiety. All this stuff is affected by your gut. The more fiber we can consume and adapt to over time, the more our gut flora increases. And so if you can't handle the fiber yet, it's because you don't have the gut flora to do it. But by increasing it over time, you're feeding it and building up larger amounts. It will handle more fiber, right? So it's something you can increase gradually. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.